Scorpio 26, Indians making camp. So we're discussing adaptability. The hunter-gatherer didn't settle in a particular place like a farmer does. The hunter-gatherer was always on the move, aware that the very changes in nature created environmental conditions at different times of the year and so on, and that they would move in response to these changes and understand that they were a part of it all, that nature was not other, it was just all and everything, and they were dancing within that. Their adaptability enabled them to go to a new place and just look around and find what they needed there. And we have lost that capacity significantly since taking up agriculture. And it's got far worse when we actually got into the industrialization and now, the electronic age. We're going further and further away from an ability to adapt to nature. And yet nature is far more powerful than anything we could tame. We will always have to accept that nature is in charge, by which we mean that we're going to have to do work, we're going to have to overcome challenges, we're going to have to learn how to cope or die, or certainly be very uncomfortable indeed, but eventually death threatens us if we don't work it out. And this is not to be considered a bad thing, as so many people do consider it. This is a good thing for those of us who actually want to develop any ability, any power, any awareness. This is entirely impossible unless we're challenged. And the degree to which we're challenged and we overcome those challenges, that's the degree to which we develop spiritually, and in fact material world skills also develop as we meet challenges. Of course they do. The extreme form of this was made known to us in the writings of one Carlos Castaneda. He was discussing sorcery in Mexico. And one of the principles in training to be a sorcerer is to have a petty tyrant, which means a boss or somebody who had power over you, the power of life or death. And that ability to be able to cope with a tyrant develops mastery in somebody who's got the right frame of mind. Now, contrary to how we would love it to be and how we are told it is, contrary to that, we are living in a world dominated by tyrants. Those in power really don't have our best interests at heart, not the ones who have the real power, and their own best interests are actually served long before ours. We are ruled by tyrants. And as soon as we come to understand this, first of all, and secondly, that's good, the better we have a chance of using that resource that we have. And that resource is tyranny. If we can turn that understanding around so that we understand, first of all, that we've chosen to be here in this body, in this personality, at this time in history, in this geographical place. We've chosen all of that before we were born. And we chose this in order that we could have the lessons necessary to survive tyranny, because we want to develop the qualities. And those qualities primarily have to be led by adaptability. In any situation, the challenge that we face is not made known to us. We first of all, we have to understand what we want, how we're blocked, what's blocking us, and only then can we kind of work out what to do about it. And that might be ask someone else for some help, and it might be pick up a tool from your toolbox, or sit down and meditate and think about doing it in a different way, or Just leave it for the time being, because now is not the right time to deal with that particular challenge. Let the unconscious mind process it a little bit more before moving forward. There are all manner of strategies that we have to learn, and it's quite shocking, really, to notice how very few people bother. Most people take it upon themselves to get a job and do as they're told so they get their paycheck. And that's the end of the story. Like, it's not for a spiritual warrior. The spiritual warrior considers that the current circumstances, the springboard towards the next chapter of the story. How do I deal with this tyrant? Right, dealt with that one. Next. How do I deal with this tyrant? Dealt with that one. Right, next. Moving through all of the tyrants you can find until you actually sit on the top of whatever heap you've decided to choose for yourself. And these tyrants don't take the form necessarily of rich men in suits forcing you to work at a job you don't like. It could be much more subtle than that. It could be the tyranny of expectation within relationship, that you take it as read that your husband has the right to do this, or your wife is okay doing that. And in fact, that's not okay. You don't want that. You can't accept that. Not really. Part of you is constantly resentful about that. And yet you have not the power in your mind to change this tyranny. So it could be the tyranny of expectation within relationship, or worse, it could be bullying, or violence. There's an expectation also that a spiritual teacher can guide you on the right path, and that's a legitimate expectation. But what happens so very often is that in a very subtle way, judgments creep in, so that this is the path I'm setting for you. Why aren't you following it? Why are you doing what is wrong? There's that judgment that the teacher has actually put in your own mind. And that's so subtle a tyranny that most people won't recognize that they're under a tyrant. In the end, all spiritual teachings, all occupations, all relationships must serve your own agenda. It may be that you need to get involved in wrong situations or difficult situations before you know what your agenda is, which is fine. That's the purpose of that challenge, to find out what works for you and what doesn't work. And as soon as you recognize what really doesn't work for you, if you can find the courage and the clarity of mind, as soon as you've recognized this, then move on immediately. There's an additional oomph of energy that's available in the moment of discovery. When you come to an understanding, like, oh, right, and you move upon it immediately, it's much more likely to succeed than if you wait and cogitate and meditate for too long. And these processes of thinking clearly and meditating and intuitively understanding, very valid principles, of course. And yet they have to be balanced against spontaneity and direct insight for them to be valid. So if you realize all of a sudden, oh wow, yes, I am living in a tyranny, and that engenders a passion within you to do something about it immediately, there's no need to meditate about that. Get on with it. Do something. Set the ball rolling. You won't be able to solve the situation immediately. Things are complex. But you can set the ball rolling. Say a word. Just mention to your partner, no, look, I'm not happy with that. And get them thinking. Mention to your boss that you don't like being spoken to like that. Just get them thinking. See if you can actually confront the tyranny in your life. And if you can, then you've gained the strength to do that. And if you can't, then the clarity to move away is also a resource. one way or another, you're going to gain a benefit from facing up to tyrants. And the best skill of all to deal with any of these tyrannical powers that we have to face is this question of adaptability. There isn't anything more tyrannical than nature. And these native Indians making camp, they have to overcome the risk of starvation every day of their lives. They have to overcome the risk of enemy attack and the risk of animals attacking them and so on. And it's a dangerous world that they live in, and so this quality of always being able to find some way of coping, that quality of adaptability, this is what's necessary. And it's equally necessary for us, but in a different context. In the modern era, we do different things, but we have to be more flexible and ready to move. Keep always ready to move. And then trust that what you need, all of what you need, will be found locally. Wherever you are, you look around and you seek, then you'll find what you need. Those who've learned how to seek have learned how to find.